Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The Mercedes W14 is almost complete and they have given their latest update on the potential they believe this year's car has. Certainly a championship winning possibility in their eyes, but they want to keep their expectations grounded for now until pre-season testing in Bahrain in about a month's time. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. First of all, big news of the day, the calendar for this season officially confirmed. Now it was confirmed a while ago, but then things changed a bit because China got cancelled because of the policies and stuff. There was some rumours that China would come back onto the calendar because of, I think they changed their policies. Also, there was rumours of a replacement, first of all in Portugal at Portimao, and then in Istanbul Park, Turkey. Neither of those are happening though, nor are we going back to China. So just a 23 race season. Now 23 races is a lot of races anyway, and I feel like the way it's done at the moment is probably about as many as we realistically should be doing, and 24 is arguably one step too far. Maybe 23 is one step too far, but especially the way this works from a logistical perspective is now a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. I'm sure logistics people are looking at this thing and oh my god, it's an absolute disaster because Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, the first 3 races of the season, that finishes 2nd of April. Then there are 28 days between the Sunday, the race day of Australia and Azerbaijan, which is the joint longest for about 15 years. We'll see in a second. Of course, China was meant to be between round 3 and round 4, but now we have a very early, what is effectively a spring break. Of course, the summer break is after Spa, not after Hungary as sometimes it is, but it's after round 13, the summer break at the start of August, but there's a massive break just after the first 3 races. Quite interesting the timing of it, just because first of all you go from these 3 races to 5 races in 6 weeks. You get basically 4 weeks off, and then you've got 5 races in 6 weeks. Azerbaijan, Miami is a double header for some reason. Then you get 1 week off back to Imola, then Monaco, then Spain, before you then get another little bit of time off before Canada. But it's an absolute mess, to be honest. And what it does mean though is the first 3 races, potentially you're going to have people coming with major upgrade packages by the time they get to round 4. The teams have an entire month off after 3 races to develop their car, think about things, bring you upgrades. So, it depends. Whoever dominates the first 3 races might turn up to Baku and realise their competition has made a massive step, because I think a lot of teams will be. So that's the thing. Ferrari, if they dominate the first few races again, they might, once again do that thing. They look good early on. They turn up to Baku and it might be a slightly different story. That's round 4. But official confirmation that all the existing race dates are unchanged. I guess they couldn't work it out with any of the alternatives on the dates or whatever the reason was. But yeah, no China replacement, no China coming back. And as F1 Stats Guru points out right here, this is the longest gap between races since 2007. In 2007, it was a 28-day gap between the Bahrain Grand Prix and the Spanish Grand Prix, round 3, round 4. This will be also a 28-day gap between round 3, round 4 of this upcoming season. So not ideal. And also look at this that Barista Josh made, I thought was kind of crazy, right? A 40-second video here. I guess I'll try and put it on the big screen. This is the F1 schedule in terms of the logistics. They go from Bahrain to Saudi Arabia to Australia, then a long time later to Baku, then to Miami 1 week later, then back to Imola, then to Monaco, then to Spain. I mean, just look at this, right? You go to Canada and then back to Europe. That's the annoying one, I think, is the Canada one. There's some sort of like national holiday in Canada that means they want to do it that weekend, and it means you've got to fly to North America and back again within the space of a couple of weeks. Never ideal, but yeah, this is the entire Canada, then to Qatar, then all the way over to Austin, Texas, Cota, then Mexico, then Brazil, then I think it goes back to Las Vegas, and then of course finishes out in Abu Dhabi. So I mean, yeah, look at all that traveling, right? It really is just an absolute classic from Formula 1, and they keep saying they're going to make the calendar better and more efficient for, travel and stuff like this and emissions, but hasn't really happened yet. But I guess we have one less race, so it's either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the way you look at it. Let's talk Mercedes. First of all, some comments here from George Russell. Thought was quite interesting. Now, in fairness, the only other team really that he has experience with is Williams, and of course he was in that team kind of trying to be the leader of it, despite not really having any experience. I guess, he was the best driver, so that's kind of how it tends to go. But he reckons that being at Mercedes has given him multiple years, multiple seasons worth of experience. So we'll see how he copes going forwards, because his first season against Hamilton was very impressive. There's some caveats to the actual point score at the end of the day, but still an incredibly great season from Russell. Whether he can keep that going, especially if he feels like he's now gained so much experience from that season for many different reasons, being alongside Lewis Hamilton, of course, being one of them. And as he goes on to say, learning from Hamilton, it's making up for 3 years where I was trying to lead a team at Williams where I actually had rather little experience. So some have backed Russell to get the better of Hamilton again, but apparently Hamilton's going to get paid at least in 24 and 25, because I think he's going to get extended for another 2 years after this one. He's going to get paid like 68 million a year or something for those couple of seasons. seasons. So he's obviously going to have to be good value for money for Mercedes investment in that sense. And also, I commented on this the other day, right, the fact that James Vowles going to Williams, the possibility in the future of him returning to Mercedes. And Total Wolff actually got asked this question and said on the topic, never say never about him returning because he is fantastic. He actually went into quite some detail here and said, I've been very open about how I felt going forwards. I've made a step beyond the actual employment, and my role within the team of being a shareholder is a long-term decision. I keep introspecting of how much I can contribute to the organisation, and if one day I believe there's a shortcoming in an area, be it on sporting, technical or commercial side or in the politics, I wouldn't hesitate for a second in appointing someone, potentially a new team principal, to that area of finding someone who can take over what I do, because as a co-shareholder, my main interest is that the team prospers and that we are winning on the track. That is 90% of what I do. The other 10% is business or financial development of the company. Never say never about Vowles returning because he is great. I hope that he is going to have a long career as team principal at Williams though. Hopefully we get to see him in press conferences. He could, as I have at Mercedes, have a 10-year stint there. We'll let him fly out, do his own thing, but I wouldn't rule it out, Vowles returning to Mercedes in the next 3 or 4 years to take Toto Wolff's job as he kind of moves on to do other things within the Mercedes organisation, depending on where he feels like he can best fit to, well, as he says, help the team prosper and win on track as well. Now, he gave his comments also on the W14. We believe and we know, we think, that it's going to look rather similar to the W13. That's been the rumours that are emerging, and all the details kind of point towards those lines. We saw some leaked images yesterday that implied that they might be going down the no side pod route again. Whether that's good or bad, who knows? But they believe there's an awful lot of potential in this car. Mercedes have said that, but it's interesting that they've made the decision to double down on this, and they believe that this concept can be the best one. Now, whether it was a matter of thinking, okay, can this concept be the best, or whether it's a matter of thinking, well, if we change up now, we're just going to put ourselves too far behind. But I think like they would have had to, if they knew this car concept wasn't going to work, they would have had to eat the humble pie. And even Hamilton said this in an interview earlier in the season. He was like, look guys, let's make sure we're not being arrogant here. If the concept isn't going to work, like let's maybe just copy the Red Bull or whatever, go down a different route, and okay, maybe take 1 year as a bit of a setback to catch up again, and then go full force in 2024. But they are confident that this car design is the one that's going to win a world championship. And of course, they have the advantage of that no other team is going to bring a design like this because they weren't that good last year for reasons that probably didn't have something specifically to do with the side pod design that has been discussed a fair bit. So Toto Wolff now says explicitly, I think we understood how we fell back and where the shortcomings are, where we have gaps in our understanding or had gaps in understanding, and we're working hard to put a car on the ground that has addressed all of that. Whether they can achieve that, that's the question, but we'll only see when we start testing whether we have unlocked the potential that we believe has always been in the car. So there he says, we believe the cars always have potential. In a second, he says it slightly more explicitly that they're pretty damn confident that this car has what it takes because, you know, they're not just hoping to win races or get back to podiums on a regular basis. It's about winning both championships. They've got the driver pairing to do it, absolutely. If the Mercedes is competitive, and I saw some stats the other day comparing the race pace and the qualifying pace between Hamilton and Russell, and they were within a few, you know, hundredths of a second of each other across the entirety of the season. It's remarkable the consistency those guys had, but also how close they were in terms of pace. And I feel like every weekend you know exactly where the Mercedes is as a car because you just got to see Hamilton would pump in a lap time and then Russell would pump in a lap time either, you know, 500ths faster, 500ths slower. They were within that level of margin all the time in the season. But he doesn't rule out the possibility of again having a difficult start to the year. We have no doubt when you're starting behind by half a second, which is obviously kind of where they finished up the season, at least at Abu Dhabi. They were the fastest car on track in Brazil, but there were other, you know, the Ferraris weren't great on those few weekends. They were pretty good in Brazil, and there were arguments that Red Bull have put some like heavier parts on their cars towards the end of the season to prepare for 2023. So whatever the kind of the caveats are there, they were still behind at Abu Dhabi, a circuit that they knew they'd be bad at. But it is going to be difficult to catch up, he says. Having said that though, we are super determined in doing just that, but we need to set our expectations that are at a realistic level. If we perform in the way that we hope so, then we'd like to be part of racing at the very front. I think that would be a starting point. So I guess their intention is to, right at the start of the season, if they can, be fighting for wins at the start and then hopefully go from there. But we don't take that for granted. It could well be that the gaps are like they were at the end of last season, but I think there's so much potential that's still within our car, within the concept, the way we drive the car, etc., that maybe our development slope can be steeper in the months to come. This is the thing I think we should expect from Mercedes. I don't really expect them to have the best car at the start of the season. Ferrari and Red Bull, they still have that edge, I would say, based on last season's car, but with potentially some other elements unlocked in the W14 that weren't there in the W13, there is probably a steeper development slope. So to me, it's about seeing how close are Mercedes at the start? If they're close enough in the first 3 races, then there's that massive month-off break where the teams are going to have a lot of time to put all that data into practice and potentially bring some major upgrades. We could see Mercedes be very competitive early on next season, and if they start very well, that is an incredibly scary sign for the opposition, just because, yes, Red Bull are very good on their development in general, but they do have the issue of the 10% testing time penalty, which will affect them as they get towards the end of this upcoming season. So to me, it's a matter of how close can Mercedes be at the start, how close can they be, if not at the front, by race 10, and if they can, they certainly can win the championship. They've got the drivers to do it, they've got the concept to do it, they believe, and I mean, yeah, they're clearly very confident here, because he said it twice in this, just in the space of a few sentences, that there's so much potential within this car, they just didn't unlock it last year. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all that in the comment section below. Just one final thing to mention from the Toto Wolff side, because we heard the rumours, not actually rumours, it's been confirmed by Mohammed bin Sulayem and the guys at the FIA, that they're going to crack down on political statements, or basically any drivers having an actual opinion on anything. Now, of course, on paper, this sounds quite bad, and I think it kind of is, but Toto Wolff is actually backing the FIA on this and saying, well, you know what, when it's written down on paper, it seems harsh, but the reality is the crackdown might not be that significant, right? And I'm sure he's had to try and convince Lewis Hamilton of that, because Hamilton will certainly not want to stop making his opinions known on various things, because he feels like given his platform, he has kind of an obligation to do that for the the things that he believes in, which I can understand totally. Now, I wonder if this will kind of be, because we know the Hamilton nose ring thing throughout the course of the season, there was so much drama about that, and I think eventually Hamilton just kind of took it out and they kind of moved on. It kind of went away quietly a little bit, but there was a massive back and forth on that last season, even though that's something that seemed so trivial. So, even though Toto Wolff saying that it's not going to be a big deal about this, I would not be particularly surprised with the way the FIA are going lately. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.